Strength Spotlight Season 2, presented by Strengths Masters. My name is Seshasai, and I'm going to be a moderator for this exciting journey into strengths based leadership for high performing teams. But before I talk about today's session, I, on behalf of Team Strengths Masters, would like to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to all our LinkedIn viewers, LinkedIn leaders, and of course, distinguished speakers who did play a very pivotal role in making Strength Spotlight Season 1 a grand success. Your engagement and insights have truly set the stage for our journey ahead. Now, today we're going to explore as to how do we harness individual strengths. How harnessing individual strengths can transform team dynamics and drive exceptional results. Now, joining me today are two incredible speakers and seasoned professionals from the HR and L&D domain. First, Mr. Gautam Duggal. Welcome, Gautam, first of all, and thank you very much for being a part of today's session.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Gautam
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thanks, Gautam. Thank you. Gautam happens to be Director, Global Talent Management and Learning at MasterCard, bringing over 2 decades of experience in building and managing HR teams focused specifically on talent and learning. Now, his expertise includes recruitment, leadership development, learning initiatives, succession planning, and performance management. Now, at MasterCard, he has successfully led global talent management initiatives across 58 countries, aligning business goals with effective talent strategies to foster leadership readiness and high performance cultures. Recognized for his innovative approach, Gautam leverages technology and best practices to drive cultural skills in organizations. Now, with a strong background in South Asia, Europe, Middle East, and North America, Gautam is committed to organizational transformation and developing exceptional workforces. Gautam, once again, thank you very much. Our second speaker, Abhishek Joshi. Abhishek is the founder of Strength Masters and a Gallup certified strengths coach with an illustrious career and experience in learning and talent management. He has been instrumental in establishing strengths-based development and transformation practice in numerous organizations, ranging from large-scale organizations to growth-stage organizations. Now, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready for an insightful session filled with strategies and stories that will elevate your leadership approach. Now, here comes the first question, which is a common question to both you and Gautam. Okay, so let's. So Gautam, let me ask you, or rather, between you, the two of you can decide. The first question is, what are some of the core characteristics that define a high performance team in today's business landscape? So, anyone, if you can take this.
Okay. Thank you, Sai. Abhishek, you want to take the lead?
No, Gautam, I think I'd like to invite you. Thank you, Sai. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So I think I'll refer back to the SEALs team in US. I think they have this, 4x4 grid, which looks at 2 axes, right? Primarily. One is performance over a period of time, and the other one is trustworthiness. And I find it very interesting that trustworthiness is the most important factor for any high performing team. And it's not about trusting the individual to do the right thing, but the trust between the individuals to come together and actually deliver on the solution. Even if the performance is a little low to begin with, right? Or over a period of time, people's, I think their affinity towards the work that they do, or the satisfaction that they draw out of the work, that keeps flipping. So that will show up in the performance, but that doesn't show up in the way the trustworthiness is there. So I think those are the 2 secret ingredients, along with all the new age skills. But as long as you have trust in place, performance can always be pulled up, because then people take feedback more seriously. People then look at, advice coming from team, friends, juniors, seniors, in a big picture view, and they don't just look at what's being said to them. But if you take out that element, everything that you do for them will be seen from a very negative light. So those are, I think, for me, those are the 2 big factors. Along with that is obviously, they need to understand the business. They need to understand what they're selling, even if they're not at the sales front. They need to understand how commercialization happens in a particular business, and the value that they draw out of it. So I'll now hand it over to Abhishek.
No, thank you, Gautam. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Shai, for introduction. So absolutely, I completely agree with Gautam. For me, I give trust really high weightage. It is not about having the most talented set of people working together and trying to achieve a result. It is about people just coming together, doing things simply. And the simplest thing that they can do is, trusting each other. And that will bring alignment. And if they trust each other and they are aligned with each other, they will definitely bring alignment and they will definitely be able to lead towards a high performance. So I completely agree. There is no second thought. I give trust very, very high weightage, and that's how my definition also is absolutely aligned with you, Gautam.
Fantastic, Gautam and Abhishek. I think Gautam, you've brought in a very unique perspective. I mean, trust. It reminds me of a quote. The trust is like the air we breathe. If it's present, everyone, no one notices. But if it's absent, everyone notices. Okay, so that's a hidden. That's a kind of a hidden variable, which is quite underrated, loosely used word.
Yes.
Yes. Before we talk about other metrics and parameters, I think trust. If the culture of trust is not being institutionalized, then there is no it makes no sense practically. It makes sense, but then yes, the kind of results that we expect or desire for can never be achieved. Fantastic, Gautam. Thank you, for bringing in that unique perspective. Okay, now here comes the second question. What are some common challenges leaders face when building high performance teams, and how can they effectively address these challenges? This is again the question which is common to both.
Gautam,
I think one big challenge which is happening today, there's a lot of buzzwords that are thrown around. I like AI. I think helps me do a lot of things today, but for the understanding of what AI means to the team, right? I think we're still talking very big picture, what will happen in the future kind of an environment. I still see a lot of leaders not discussing which other AI tool can I use in my team with the team, right? They're just reading it somewhere. They're coming back and saying, okay, we need to have all of these capabilities in our team. Is the team ready for it? Right? So how do you perform? How do you make the team perform at a higher level if you don't even know where the team stands, right? So you're not touching on the strengths of the team, and that's because there's a breakdown in communication. So I see that. I think buzzwords are definitely out there. They'll always be. But the good leaders, they cut through the buzzwords and they look at what can my team actually leverage? Where can I take away the redundant task? Where can I take away task which is not adding value? Recently, I was in discussion with somebody who said, hey, can you help me with a script of what I need to say on a podcast? I'm like, you don't need me. There's ChatGPT out there. You don't need me. So how do you cut through that? Is first, once you've done that bit and you've tried to, have that conversation, establish that cohesiveness in the team, I think then it's time for you to reflect on where are the strengths of the team. Maybe there are some people who need a longer hand-holding and longer empathy period as compared to the others. Some might move very fast with technology, some might not. So you now need to look at where is the strength of my team and who would need more support. And is it me every time doing that support? Or is there could be anybody else? I think the third one, which is very crucial, especially when you want to, nudge the team a little high. Some teams have been working for a long time together. And I think 6 months is a long time in today's world. So if the team is together for 6 months, I think you have a fantastic leader. But there are certain things that the team has done, right? And they've seen success doing that. They might not be the best practice out there, but then there is that inherent association to that practice. Saying, hey, we've done it like this last time around and we were successful. Let's do it like this again. I think the good leader to build like a high performing team will actually push the envelope and say, okay, let's do the right thing. Let's do it the right way. Let's look at better technology, better workflow, better project management approach. They'll push the team. And once you do that, the team understands where you're coming from because you've done the setup. They sort of understand and trust you. Now, when you push the envelope, it's going to be much faster to get a high performing team. Otherwise, it's a lot of gas. We could do workshops, we could do all of these things. Unless they listen to their leader and, point and shoot in the direction you want them to, the war is futile.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So my take on this question is, to build a high performance team, the biggest challenge is, how do we keep things simple? How do we communicate with people very, very clearly? And one point where a lot of teams are not able to do things efficiently is that, how do I build role clarity to each and every team member? And how do I focus on, communicating well and giving role clarity to people? If these things are done simply, challenges related to high performing teams can be taken care of quite easily. If you look at, I draw a lot of examples of sports team. I analyze a lot of data of sports teams and why a specific club was able to win championship, and what was key reasons. And many a times, the simple answers that emerge out of those analysis are because there was a very good communication within the team members. People had very good understanding about what they are supposed to do, and the leader was focusing on communicating it, over communicating it many a times, helping people internalize what their goal is. And that led people understanding what they are supposed to do, how they are supposed to do. And in first point, we talked about trust. The simple communication and giving people role clarity enhanced trust in each other, and that led to high performance. So the challenge which leaders face is that they are technically quite equipped many a times. They are able to take their team to the next level. But these simple things which matters really quite a lot, communicating well and giving people role clarity, focus on, role clarity and communicating it again and again to people. So these are two challenges, many times, like Gautam said, that because people are not aware about each other's strengths. So therefore, communicating them about how they will do, what they will do, what are they best at, it becomes quite difficult. And that's a challenge that I have experienced. Yeah. Sorry.
That's great, Abhishek and Gautam. Gautam, you touched upon the AI aspect, which is again very close to my heart. I mean, I feel that whilst there is a buzz that yes, either companies embrace AI or they'll be swept away. Okay. Now, I always, this is one question which keeps intriguing me. That first of all, as leaders or as custodians of technology, which could be HR, regardless of function, when we know that yes, this is inevitable, and the inevitable has to happen very soon, but are our teams ready or not? So as a custodians, I think a narrative is very important. That as you rightly said, that it has to cut through, and the language has to be such which should be made understood depending on each your team member's strengths. Some could be technologically savvy, some may not be. Some may be willing to accept, willing to embrace, some may not be willing to accept. So in that, in those situations or under those circumstances, what should be the communication like? Okay. So I think that is where, as leaders, we need to strike a very fine balance, because knowing very well that yes, sooner or later, 90% of the new age organizations have to embrace it. Otherwise, they'll find it very difficult to thrive. Forget about thriving. In fact, they'll be striving actually. Okay, to be in the market first of all. Yeah. So great points, Gautam. And Abhishek, thank you very much. I guess today some interesting points are coming up. Gautam, next question, which is quite related to the previous question. Now, from a talent development perspective, according to you, in your past and current experience, what do you feel that some of the top two challenges you have encountered in scaling high performance teams across large organizations? Okay, strictly from a talent development perspective, and what's been your approach, in terms of overcoming those?
I think consistency, which is the key, generally gets missed when it comes to larger organizations, because what happens is we'd always talk about this global approach and a local implementation, right? And one of my key phrases is, what works for Portugal might not work in Pondicherry here.
Yeah.
So when it comes to larger organizations, and I'm talking about companies which will have like offices in 30 countries, 40 countries, 50 countries, you're also having audience from 40 different sort of cultures, right? You also have people working for you who are performing fairly well on their jobs, but they understand things differently, right? So especially when it comes to talent development or hitting that key insight, a lot is lost in translation, especially if you stick to the global English language, right? It would land very well if I, do a punchline in, let's say in Hindi, if my audience is in India, right? Or I do a cultural reference which is in Hindi. So because of that, there is that global program, but global approach, but a local implementation. When we do that, the flip side of the double edge of that is, because you're doing a local implementation, you're not consistently putting the best product out there, right? It comes up with its own variation, right? And eventually, over a period of time, one program feels far better than another program. While it started off as the same program, but because of two different countries, today it feels very different. So consistency has been one challenge. I think making sure that even if it's happening locally, it's getting delivered locally, is it still matching your standard of quality that you want to maintain, right? And I think this is where, that's a challenge that I've faced so many times now. Anytime a new program comes in, you want to deploy it all over the world, unless it's virtual, which I think people are not liking anymore. They want to get together, they want to have that camaraderie. Then that challenge will again pop up. And the way we've tried to solve that is, get the leader on the ground involved. Because the leader on the ground would obviously know the audience, also knows, the global ethos, because they're probably interacting with the global team, or they have that script available saying, hey, we need to stick to this game plan. While I will allow a 5% variation, but my 95% has to be, to this program. As an L&D boy, I can get, carried away by seeing my feedback results and saying, oh, I'm doing it better than the rest of the world, so I'm going to keep continuing to do this. But somebody has to stop and get me back and say, hey, the strength of the program is this framework, and you need to stick to it. One of my, previous leaders used to say this: if Amitabh Bachchan says something on television, everybody believes it. Because we've seen him do, fantastic stuff in movies. So we sort of believe in him that he will go out and save the world. At work, my leaders on ground have sort of done the same role for me. They come into the office, they show that they can work, they deliver results. So when they say something, it lands far better to me than Gautam from HR from one particular office telling me this. So I think that the secret sauce is get those leaders involved. Let them, help the organization stick to that framework. And then that's where you actually deliver great products, product full of strengths. That's when a high-performing team will start coming into play. Until then, we keep diluting. One program starts, the other starts, the other starts. And then you're thinking, well, we've launched 7 programs. Why isn't the culture changing? Because I think we're diluting it too much.
Right. Great. Interesting insight.
Interesting insight. I think, Gautam, this is, Abhishek, I'm sure you would also agree that this is the real meaning of HR business partner, or L&D function partnering, aligning very closely with the businesses and make the leader of that specific business vertical convey the message that the L&D professionals are trying to convey. Then it'll actually sound more convincing. And as you said, you took the example of Amitabh Bachchan, larger than life. So for that particular team of that particular specific business vertical, their leader is going to be somebody who's going to be larger than life personality. And these guys automatically will follow suit. I guess that's a very elementary and the basic, because sometimes we forgot, B2B, back to basics. We start complicating things, but then sometimes we tend to forget the very, very elementary, rudimentary things which are supposed to be done. Great point up, Gautam. Thank you very much. Abhishek, you have any point to add?
No, I think I quite like the insight about consistency, because many times what happens, we can create good programs, and while creating, often, I've seen professionals who come from talent management background, they all often feel, that it can be scaled up. Scaling up can happen, but if there is no consistency, if what I am doing here as compared to what I'm implementing, let's say somewhere in Nigeria, then impact will never happen. And what Gautam said is also something which I learned, that if we include local leaders, if we make them stakeholders, then it will be customized. It will have, those culture ethos part of the entire process. and it will create an impact, and that will bring consistency. And across, this is something which I keep interacting with stakeholders, and then they often voice out this point that how can we make consistent entire program. So we are doing this here in India. Can we replicate this in, let's say some part in Europe? Can we do it in, let's say, South America? So how do we do this? What is it? So I think it's a great insight. Thank you, Gautam. Thanks a lot.
Fantastic. Great. I guess okay. Now the next question. This question is common to you both, Abhishek and Gautam. So
before you ask, this question will be answered by Abhishek first.
Sure. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. How can leaders, Abhishek, now since Gautam said, so how can leaders who may not be familiar with strength science start integrating a strengths-based approach into their team management? And and then what would be the first steps? Abhishek, all yours.
Sure, Sai. So thanks a lot. First of all, I'll talk about why leaders are not able. How can, so before I start recommending them. It's not their fault. So what happens? Areas of improvement is overrated. Looking at your strength is so much underrated, and that's how people look at things. And therefore, it is first of all becomes difficult that there is a science that exists that can help people talk about strengths, and there is a way through which we can also look at strengths of individuals. So first is why, so because people have not been exposed to this philosophy many a times, and those who know, they're able to take it up very, very fast, So that's, the answer lies in why, because they have not been aware that areas of improvement is so overrated and looking at strength is underrated. That's one. Second, the question that you asked, that how can they integrate, it's very simple, Sai. So first of all, when we start looking at what is right with people and understanding them scientifically and start maximizing it, it becomes really easy. So simple process is that, first of all, looking at the simplest data point available to you about your team. If you look at the simplest data point which is available to me about my team is, what are they good at? If I can just find out a process of figuring that out scientifically, rather than relying on my own experience, it becomes very easy. So this is how it can be integrated, So that's my answer to your question, Sam. Thank you. Gautam, your take on this.
Okay.
I agree. I think
Gautam, support that. So you can pick up the thread from there, yeah.
No, absolutely. I think there's no value add that I'll do to what Abhishek has said. But the way I think I read it somewhere that for stock markets, it goes by the nomenclature of past performance does not guarantee future results. But when it comes to a team's strengths and behaviors, past performance or past behavior is a very good indicator of how one would behave in the future as well, given the same situation.
Yeah.
Right. Or a similar situation, because that's how, the system one of your brain will activate and stuff will happen to you. So given that, I think as a leader, I would want to not only know what is the strength of my team, but also want to know where are the areas we need to focus on together. Even for my own leaders, I would want to know that is, what are some of the strengths that you carry? Because if you're going to steer the ship, I want to make sure this is not Captain Jack Sparrow.
Right.
It's Captain Barbossa.
Yeah.
So Captain I want to work for the team. Yeah, I want to work for the team which is going to get me results, which will give me options to grow, which will give me opportunities to try out new things.
Yeah.
Rather than somebody saying, hey, it's all about me and it's my show. Same logic applies to my team as well. If we are not looking at what they're good at and acknowledging it and then giving them a free hand to do it, and we only focus on, hey, out of the whole page, the last 2 lines are your development, and I'm going to focus on the last 2 lines of your development. You're missing the whole script. So I like the idea, what Abhishek is saying. Look at the strengths, and past strengths are a very good indicator of how people will behave in the future. So let's leverage those. There is always, everybody has development areas.
Yeah.
I'm very sure Mr. Modi will also be getting feedback from a lot of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So so what I've seen, because our leaders spend a lot of time, energy, and money in hiring people, having good people on board, but after that, they don't focus on knowing them well. And if they start knowing them, what they are good at, it will make job very easy, because they have hired them based on knowledge and skills they have and certain competencies which were required to be part of the organization. But now, what are their innate talents? What are they naturally good at? What comes naturally to them? How can they add value? And like Gautam said, how can collectively, when I look at the strength of the group, what all can we achieve together? How can we drive? How can we help each other manage certain things better than better than doing it alone. So that's my take.
Fantastic, Abhishek. Now, I guess the follow-up question should also go to you, because I'm sure Gautam will say that yes, we'll let Abhishek answer that. But anyway, okay. So now, Abhishek, in your experience now, since you have been instrumental in establishing, or rather in actually in implementing strength-based leadership in many organizations, what have been some of the biggest mindset shifts, according to you, which you've observed once the team starts focusing on strengths? And how did this impact long-term performance? I guess Gautam just mentioned that yes, past performance, your past behavior actually predicts future performance. Okay.
Right.
So this question actually, let me pick up the thread from there, Abhishek. In your experience, what is that major mindset shift?
So major mindset shift sign is people often get surprised that there is so simple way of looking at each other. There can be a very simple way of. So why strength-based leadership works with so many organizations is not that we have Supermans delivering the program, implementing it. It's because the approach is very simple. It is very non-threatening. It is non-prescriptive. So therefore, I also hear this from leaders that we never thought that a leadership development program can be so simple, non-threatening, non-prescriptive. And it can be around, how do we leverage each other strengths. At the same time, the way we look at, the way we do not ignore weaknesses in the entire process. We talk about, how strengths can complement people in doing something together well, and how strengths can become impediment in doing something together. So these are, some key mindset shift signs which we have seen, which people were not aware of when we started working with them. And when they look at it, they realize that because when we do implement the entire learning journey, they see, okay, how this transition happens so simply. We never thought that it will happen. I mean, at leadership level, especially, it is really, really difficult for someone to accepting self the way they are and accepting others the way they are. This is the biggest mindset shift sign. So two people who are having certain conflicts, they were able to accept each other the way they are. I think nothing can be a bigger mindset shift than this. That's
great. Great, Abhishek. So I think this is one concept which is very simple to talk about, very simple to implement, because you used two words. One is non-threatening, and second is non-prescriptive. Gautam, what just Abhishek mentioned, do you agree that the what's in it for me in a strength-based leadership, if any organizational stakeholders decide to implement, is very high? I mean, from what Abhishek just said, I just want to pick up the thread. So what is your take on that? Because usually people ask, okay, what's in it for me? Okay, and that's the biggest question mark. And if people say that, yes, there is a lot of value add for me and I'm not being threatened and I'm relatively in my comfort zone. Okay, so I'm all game for it. But if there is a slight question mark, that means I'm shaky. I may or may not do it. So your take on that?
So I agree to the point of, what's in it for me has to be clear. But like Abhishek said, a lot of leaders, I think because of the daily grind, we end up missing it. Right? We take it as, we've discussed this when we were setting up your goals, right? You're supposed to work on this project. I don't have time to actually sit down with you and explain or sell the project every time to you, or, sell your job to you every single day. I don't want to do that. I think that's an opportunity area we all can work towards. The other factor is also the fact of there are some players who would want, only the best projects. So you got to manage that, audience as well, right? Yeah. So I don't think there's one silver bullet. It's a combination of all, but the leaders will always have to go back and keep reiterating as to why you are one person who's on this project. Because let's understand, it's no longer that people are going into the office and are in that cubicle for 8 hours. Yeah. People are working out of. I work out of Starbucks. I work out of. Last week on Friday, I did a workshop sitting in my car while I was in traffic. And I met one of the participants today, and he said, "Where were you?" There was a lot of traffic that I could hear, but the workshop went well. People will work out of different places, and life will happen to me. So my leader is supposed to, engage. I think they'll become engagement managers more than people managers now. But and that conversation has to eventually grow, right? It's not right to expect that people will keep selling. People leaders have to sell the job or the task every single day. but do it at least once a month. In your catch-ups, please don't ask what's their vacation plan. They may not want to share with you.
Yeah.
But at least ask if you're happy in that project or not. Because I think that's where it's breaking down. While you would know my itinerary of what I'm going to do when I'm in Singapore, you have no idea if I want to work for you in the next 1 week or not.
Right.
That's where I think the system breaks down. And that's why the strengths need to come into play for the leader now. They need to get better at it.
Absolutely.
Oh, you connected that in a very fascinating way, Gautam. But then, yes, today, actually, Abhishek, incidentally, I came across a new word. So Gautam has, this is a big shout out to all the facilitators that yes, mobile facilitation is possible. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, 100%
is very much possible.
On the go. And I think after the workshop, I realized it was me who was creating that traffic.
Great points, Gautam. Thank you very much. On the go, on the move. Okay, great. So yes, so Gautam, what I'm hearing, what I heard from you is that managing expectations, and since it's an agile workforce, it's no longer. There is no fixed or a set routine the moment you walk into the office. So eventually, there is one area which leaders should focus on. Okay, this is what I'm good at. Let me try and leverage this, in the best of my capacity. So is that a fair takeaway?
Absolutely, and I think that's where the leadership will have to focus on now.
Fantastic, Gautam. Gautam, the next question is to you. Now, when assessing potential leaders within an organization, how important is it for them to have a strong understanding of their team strengths? In your perspective?
I think that's table stakes. If they don't know their team's strengths or they don't know what the team is capable of, we're not putting the right people on the job. All the successful leaders that I've worked with, they actually would know what can an individual on their team can do, right? And then they go out and back that individual. Right. I worked with some very senior individuals in my life. Some of them were fantastic in backing up their candidates because they have evaluated over a period of time of what the strength of my team is. So if they hear contrary feedback or inputs, they would not shy away to back their team in front of the board or anywhere else. Mm-hmm. I've also worked for leaders who would simply, go with the flow of individual. I like this individual. Let me, put this individual up on a project. The moment first development feedback comes, they start shaking. Their confidence in the individual shakes. They don't even know whether they like the individual anymore or not. So there these two, extremes. I think somewhere on the, I would not even say the middle, but somewhere leaning towards, hey, you got to back me up. Because there are macro factors which are beyond the control of an individual or the team, right? Correct. COVID hit beyond my control, right? There's a war going on beyond my control. What if my client is somewhere there, right? Or my product's getting delivered there? I have a team, unfortunately, which is in Tel Aviv. So how do I work with that team? That's beyond my control. So if things are not going as per our laid out plan, then my leader is supposed to back me up. But before they do that, they got to assess the strengths that I have, that yes, we can deliver, right? And we can have a plan B. So they need to do that. That's table stakes. If they're not doing it, while they would have grown in their career very well by sheer stroke of luck, but eventually it's going to, pivot somewhere. And the other point is for the team also, to come out and say, hey, leader, give me a challenge. I want to build a new, let's say, a skill. I'm not good with media. I want to build that skill. I am not good with people. I want to build that skill. So you got to reach out. I think it's a give and take. While the leaders would want to back you, they would also want people to be very proactive. If the two happens together, it hardly takes 90 days for the team to come together and deliver magic. But If it doesn't happen, then you would have people who are checked out. You would have people who are probably looking for their next break, which is not a good place to be, either for the individual or for the business as well. There's a cost associated to losing talent.
Losing talent, yeah. So that's going to expensive talent liquid. Okay, Gautam, thank you very much for this insight. The follow-up question again is for you, but then I suppose you may have already answered few of the aspects of in your previous answer. Say strengths can be very personal and unique, Gautam. Okay, now how do you create a culture where team members not only embraces their own strengths, okay, first of all self-awareness, as Abhishek mentioned, but also respect and leverage the strengths of others. Now, one is to accept yourself the way you are, the way you think, feel, and behave. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, you are actually embracing the others without, any perception, or you're not judging the other person. So according to you, what's your take on that? Yeah.
I think a lot of organizations already have a values and behavioral structure. Like, what does the organization stand for? What is the value with which we operate, right? What are the behaviors that you showcase? Now, human behaviors we can coin them in different ways, but eventually we'll land up to a very short set of behaviors, right? Anger, frustration, happiness, and all of that, right? I think the first important factor and it's an organization-wide thing, right? It can't be a team-wide. The organization is set up in a way where people understand what value or what behavior am I supposed to bring into the office, right? Yeah. I'm a short-tempered guy. This is probably not the place for me. I better join some place else. So they need to first understand what's an acceptable behavior and what is not. And I think 99% of our population understands that. Fairly educated. They would know what to say, what not to say. Even in industries where there is a lot of manual labor happening, they understand what to say, what not to say. The other factor is making sure that the how we do things is highlighted. In the current organization, we evaluate folks on not just what you do, but how you do as well, right? So that pinpoints on the right behaviors. Right. And that reinforces the idea of you need to keep leveraging this strength and become like this superstar for us, so that people look at you and they mimic, and everybody is more respectful and decent in a certain way. I think that environment, once that's built in, then it becomes very easy for the team to be respectful towards each other, right? If that environment is missing at the top, and you see your leaders behaving a certain way, but the value system says something else, then there is a conflicting environment. Now I'm confused. Should I follow Amitabh Bachchan or should I follow what the KBC rules are? Right? My innate value would be towards Mr. Bachchan, while the rule book says something else. So that's the other part of it. I think while I might not remember a lot of things when I worked at American Express, one thing I remember is their blue box values. I worked at them 16 years ago. So that stays with you, right? The how you do things always stays with people. What I don't even remember what my job was there. But I know though they had those blue box values, and there were values and the behaviors we had to show. So that stays with individuals. Once that is set, it's very easy for the leader to mimic in our teams. And then you start, calling out the good behaviors, the bad ones you call out one-on-one. And then there are a few people who are over smart. So you gotta bring them. You gotta reset the expectations. Yeah, you gotta reset the expectation and say, hey, this is not done. While you know a lot about AI, that doesn't mean that Gautam is dumb, right? He's learning. Why don't you help him out? It's like the naughtiest boy in the school getting to write the names of the most chattery boys. So, so you play it along, but it's that macro factor within the organization.
Right. Fantastic, Gautam. Thank you so much for those insights. I guess we are now entering into the last lap of this. We've got 6 minutes now. So we've got just enough time to maybe address one question, Abhishek, to you. When introducing a strengths-based approach to a team or organization, now in terms of, because this is a very common question, and I'm sure you must have faced it, even Gautam would have faced it in his tenure so far. that how do you measure the overall effectiveness? Because this is what the key stakeholders will ask. And what are some of the key metrics or outcomes do you look for?
Absolutely, science. So the first metrics that we look at is engagement score. That's something which is which this entire overall learning journey or methodology, when we implement it, actually impacts that. In fact, the data that we have, it says that people who learn to use their strengths are 6 times more likely to be engaged in their jobs. That's the valid data that we have. People who have who understand how to use their strengths are 3 times their quality of life is 3 times better than others. And the simple reason why is that people start accepting themselves the way they are in their environment. They start accepting the way others are. So their ability to work together enhances. So 3 business metrics. If you look at business metrics, one is engagement scores that we look at. Often, data that we have available with us, it also says that organization who leverage strength-based leadership as an approach has impact on the overall productivity of the team, and it also impacts the retention of the team, which of the cohort, let's say, that goes through the entire learning journey. So these are key business metrics that we have. The softer business metrics are, there is an increase in alignment, openness, and initiative orientation. That's something which we have seen very often in all the cohorts, all the organizations that we have worked with. So, but these are the key metrics around which we evaluate the performance. We look at the overall performance of the entire approach that we have.
Fantastic. Gautam, quickly, your take on that. He said engagement, productivity, 3 visible outcomes, which is openness, then initiative orientation, and alignment. So what is your quick, maybe a few seconds, 1 minute?
Yeah, 100% on alignment initiatives. Also, productivity is important. And knowing your people. If you don't know your people that you work with, it's a tough nut to crack.
Tough nut to crack. Yeah. Great. So, okay. So, I think we still have 3 minutes. Quickly, one question. Which is a common for leaders. It's a common question for both. And quickly, Abhishek, you and Gautam, if you could just in maybe one line, if you could summarize, that would be great for our audience. For leaders looking to build or transition to a strength-based approach in leading, high-performance teams, what steps or other one first step, that both of you all would recommend?
So, Gautam,
step that I would recommend.
Which you feel is the most critical? I know which you feel is the most critical, because I guess
most critical
for the audience too. Yeah.
I think if you're working with an existing team and you've been there for a while now, think about delegation. A lot of things that you could delegate to your team, right? Yeah. I see a lot of leaders still want to be that final check before things happen out of their garage. I think for an existing team, delegation, that's where you bring the strengths up.
Fantastic.
For a new team, go through their background, look at their resumes. They are here because of while you had a job, they also had capability. So look at that resume. There are very, very capable people that got hired into the organization. Recognize that and then spend time understanding where they stand.
Fantastic. Great point. I think Gautam, you spelled it out very well. Very simple things: delegation for the existing team members, and for the new ones, just scrutinize their and respect their past, whatever they've done in the past, and figure out where could they be, which area or where they could add value. Abhishek, quickly, I think we just have...
So the first step is that I'll say, okay, look around, look at the easiest data point that you can access about your team member, and you will find that the answer lies in strength. So knowing your strengths is not good to have or nice to have. It's like you must take that step and discover strengths of your team member. That will help you gain a lot of insights about your team members and work with them together and able to achieve a lot of results together. So that's what my take is, Sai. Yeah.
Great, gentlemen. Thank you so much. I guess that brings to the end of this lovely and a lively podcast. So thank you, viewers, for joining us today on Strength Spotlight. We appreciate your engagement and insights, which are vital to our journey in strength-based leadership. And a very special thanks to esteemed speakers Gautam and Abhishek for sharing their expertise. I'm sure, audience, you leave inspired to harness individual strengths within your teams for exceptional results. Okay, now thanks you for tuning into our Strength-Based Leadership podcast. As we celebrate Diwali, may the Festival of Lights illuminate your path to recognize and harnessing your unique strengths. Wishing you all a joyful and a prosperous Diwali filled with growth and success. Okay, watch out for this space for our upcoming podcast. Till then, take care and God bless. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gautam. Thanks a lot, Sai. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.